my tweet yesterday. I mean, you take exception with it?
Well, no, and you kind of alluded to it. What made me think about it is you were talking about the woman's right to choose and that issue. And so you thought it was one of your better tweets.
One of my more provocative, at least.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Biology and human anatomy dictate the female and not the male becoming pregnant. But the male obviously has a role. If it's a woman's right to choose on abortion, then it's her embryo and not both of theirs. At what point does the male or potential father have any right to choose?
Is that not a fair question to ask?
I think it's fair.
I mean, it takes two to tango. I mean,
that's just one way to put it.
Procreation is a certain science of biology and anatomy and all these other, variables that come into play. And you're right. The woman carries the child. They are directly attached and embedded in the woman. So if the woman has a right to choose to abort or not, and this is the big debate with Roe v. Wade, then it's her embryo and not their embryo. If two people are living together, if two people are married, for that matter, and the woman gets pregnant and doesn't want to be pregnant, and she wants to have an abortion, the father or potential father has no say-so in that. He has absolutely, he's at the mercy of the woman's right to choose. So in essence, what we're arguing is the embryo does not belong to the two of them, the two parents. The embryo belongs to her. It's her right to choose whether they want to have their baby or not. And I just don't understand that. I mean, I'm trying to make it complicated. Of course I am. I'm trying to spin it a certain way.
Be a little provocative.
Well, I mean, but I think it's a very interesting issue. It's a very interesting question to pose. Two adults sleep together, and the female becomes pregnant. It's her and her only right to choose whether or not to carry out. I mean, unless there's rape or incest, life of the bomb. I mean, I get the Hyde amendments in politics. But we're arguing, or the way I'm interpreting the argument is, it's her and her only right to choose when indeed there is a father. And once again, I'm being real simplistic. Takes two to tango. So if it's her embryo, when does it become their child? I mean, your kids, you got two boys. Are they your kids?
Ours.
Bingo.
Of course.
They're the two of your kids. So why is it a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to choose only? I mean, the woman did not have the child. The woman did not become pregnant on her own. Now, I know we got this fancy, artificial insemination and fertilization and all. I mean, I get all that. That's so far above my pay grade. And I tend to look at things in a very commonsensical sort of way. But I'm just arguing, if we're having a debate about a woman's right to choose, is it always the woman's right to choose? And the man who played a part in that never has any say-so whatsoever. He's at the mercy of this woman as to whether they're going to potentially have their child or not. Or is it her child? I just, to me, that's one of the most, it is provocative, but I think it's fair. I think it's very fair. You are a man. You're opposed to abortion. You and a woman have consensual sex. The woman becomes pregnant. Does she abort her baby or the two of your baby? I just think that is a very fair and legitimate question and debate to have. I just got a text from a physician, and I'm not going to call his name because smart people don't supposed to listen to the show. And he's a very professional person, and he sees the world in a very similar way to I. But he said, we have babies that weigh a pound and have 24-week gestation that live and grow up to be normal, living human beings. I mean, how do you, and Rev, I've said this before. There was a day in my life when I ran for office and held office, and I was real careful about some of those things. I mean, it really was. I was very delicate with certain things. I've always opposed abortions. I've always felt that they were the taking of human life. I just wasn't passionate about it because I don't think I understood it. But I think with technology and medical advancements and things, JT's, the 4D imaging and whatnot, I think we know a lot more about the baby in the womb. And it's not an embryo, it's a baby. And I've really boiled it down, and I think it's as simple as I can explain it. And this would be the spiritual side of me. I believe God's the giver of life, period. From the beginning to the end, I believe the last breath I took and the next breath I take is a gift from God. And if he didn't want me to take the last one, I'd be gone. If he didn't want me to take the next one, I'd be gone. I think God is in control of every single birth that ever has been and ever will be in the universe. I think God treasures and values those lives. But as a human being who understands human frailty and the sin nature of humans, I understand how people get themselves to a place where they don't believe they have another choice. I am well aware of that. I live in an imperfect world. I am incredibly imperfect in regards to that imperfect world. I guess I'm a big piece of the puzzle that is the imperfect world. And I understand from a human perspective how you get to a place. And I don't condemn people who make that decision. I'm certainly not judgmental toward people who make that decision. But I think you have ended human life when you make that decision. But the world's not full of perfect people in perfect situations and perfect circumstances. And I think when we begin, and I think at some point in time, we will revisit Roe v. Wade. I don't know in what shape or form. There doesn't seem to be an ambitious appetite in regards to that. But I think Roe v. Wade is very complicated. I don't think it's constitutionally sound. We talk about polling, where the polls are in America. It's not the job of the United States Supreme Court to do things based on what the polling says. That's what Republicans and Democrats do. That's what elected officials do. That's what I did when I was lieutenant governor of South Carolina. I made a lot of my decisions, believe it or not, based on what the public polling said. But the Supreme Court is there to what? Interpret law and understand the Constitution as it is written. And we have originalists and textualists and all these other forms. We have people that believe the Constitution is a living, breathing. Those are fair debates to have. But it's not the court's job to look at what the polls and the American public believe. I think it's the court's job to look at what the Constitution says in regards to legal matters.